Hi all, welcome to my channel AWS for all. Today we are going to go over a new topic that is mounting S3 buckets on a Windows machine or Linux machine as a file share. Um, Let me show the architecture we are going to try today. So here the S3 mounted on Linux and S3 mounted on Windows. These are nothing but the S3 buckets which we are going to mount on Linux machine and Windows machine. Um, as a preparatory steps, I have already spinning this Windows server and the Linux server, and we are going to use the file gateway S3 file gateway to host this S3 on Windows machine and Linux machine. There are quite a few steps we have to follow, and I have listed all these steps here. I'll go one by one. There is a preparatory steps for this task, that is creating a EC2 Windows machine and EC2 Linux machine. And I open the ports, specific ports, that is HTTP, SMB, and HTTPS. And creating the S3 bucket, we can use the same bucket, or for just to keep it simple, I have created two buckets. One is S3 mount on EC2 Windows, and S3 EC2 mount on Linux. Okay, so respectively we'll mount these buckets on S3 Linux and Windows servers. So the deployment steps, the first thing is, so as part of preparatory steps, we have created this Windows server and Linux server, and S3 buckets are already created. I'll show you during the demo. And as during this exercise, we are going to create the S3 file gateway, and we are going to run it on EC2 machine. There is an option for hosting the S3 file gateway. We will take it. We'll mount it on EC2, and then we will open the all required ports, and we'll connect this S3 file gateway with the storage gateway service by using the pin, and then we'll create the file shares, one for SMB file share and another one for NFS file share, and mount these S3 buckets onto these machines. Okay, and as part of this requirement, we need to set up 150 GB cache volume on this server. And this Linux server, that is NFS server S3 gateway, it acts like a server, and these two, the Windows and Linux machines, will act like a client for this server. And whenever the Windows machines connects with opens or do any file operations, um, the Linux server will convert this file operations into the respective protocol from NFS to blocks, object storage, and in case of SMB, from SMB to object storage. That conversion happens within this Linux server, and by default it needs 150 GB, a minimum 150 GB cache, and we'll provision it. Okay, so let's get started. So this is the Linux client and Windows clients, which is running in the same VPC and same zone, and in fact in the same subnet. And we are going to make use of this, and as a client machines, and we are going to start with our S3 gateway. Go to S3. As per the document or deployment steps, we are in the step 1, the create Amazon S3 file gateway on EC2 instance. Let me go to gateway file storage gateway and select gateway, create gateways, and the gateway's name. I have already written the gateway name here, S3 mount gateway. And here we need to select the gateway endpoints, that is Amazon S3 file gateway. The platform options, the gateway provides a multiple option to host these gateways. That is VMware, EXI, Microsoft Hyper-V, Linux KVM, Amazon EC2, hardware appliances. Today we are going to host it on Amazon EC2 for our use case. And to host this on EC2, we need to bring up this EC2 instance. There are two options for that. One is using the default options, like Amazon service itself will create the predefined EC2 machines which can be used. The other option is customized settings. I'll go with the customized EC2 options. When you go for customized EC2 options, how to set up the EC2, it will give a list of conditions to set up this EC2. I'll just go over the key things. The instance should be M5X large, at least the minimum configurations. And for the VPC, select the VPC you want to run the instance in, and auto assign public IP, select enable. And we need to open the ports for the file gateway TCP port 80, and TCP port 2049 we need to open, and 111 for NFS v3 access, and port 20048 for NFS v3 access. If you are planning to do the SMB, in our case we are doing both SMB file share, you must open TCP port 445 for SMB access. So I have already set up the security groups for this, and we'll just attach it to the EC2 instance. So for configuring the storage, we need to have at least this machine should have minimum 150 GB in addition to the root volume, and we can launch the instance. Okay, so this is what we were talking earlier. This is the 150 GB cache volume along with the root volume. We need to bring it up. Currently what we are doing, we are hosting this EC2 machine, and the gateway softwares will be installed. This is a predefined EMI. I'll show you in a minute, and we'll host this machine as part of this first step. So launch instance, so click on this launch instance. It will take us to the page where we can launch the instances. Let me go to my notes and get the details. So S3 mount file gateway server is an S3 mount file gateway server, and if you look at this, it's a predefined AMI, AWS storage gateway file, and S3. So AWS storage gateway file S3 file storage, it's a special AMI which are already built with the softwares, and there is no option to change it, and that's the one we had to use it. And as per the documentations, we need to have minimum M5X large machine, and the key pair, I'll get the key pair from my list, and I'll go and edit it. All my instances are running in West 2A. I'll pick up the West 2A zone. Auto public IP, enable it. The security group, I have already predefined the security group. I'll show it in a minute. This is S3 client security group, SGW. These are the client machines, and the rest all for the client machine will use the client, and the rest all will use the server security group. I'll show both of them. And here we need to add 150 GB additional storage EBS volume. Click on this add new volume and add 150 GB. You can add more than 150, but the minimum is 150 GB. Come down. That's it. Just review your setting one more time. We added 150 GB additional EBS volume and added the security groups, which includes all the which enables all the traffics, and security groups we have selected, and public IP we enabled. We are spinning it in a subnet where the other servers are running, and I do have only one VPC, and yeah, M file large I have selected, and yeah, so it looks good. And let me go and start this machine launch instance. It takes a couple of minutes to get launch. So while this is getting started, we'll go and see the other steps here. So we have to create a VPC endpoints. The VPC endpoints is nothing but this elastic network interface part, which connects the EC2 instance which we are spinning now with the storage gateway service in the AWS. So that's what it does, and we'll go ahead and create this endpoint. Okay, so this endpoint should allow the ports 443, 1026, 1027, 1028 and 1031 as per the documentation, and custom port 2222. And with all these ports open, we are going to create this VPC endpoint. Let's go back to this, duplicate this session, and type VPC here. Go to VPC and click on endpoints, create endpoints. I have given the endpoint name also in the document. This is SGW storage gateway VPC endpoint. Give the endpoint name here, select AWS services, and if you come down here, right now we are creating the endpoint for storage gateway. Let me show the endpoint for storage gateway services. So we had to pick the service storage gateway. So service name com Amazon AWS.US West 2, and this is the storage gateway service. Select on that, and it's an interface service. The interface services comes with ENI, elastic network interface, and click on the VPC, select VPC. I do have only one VPC, and we are spinning all our services in the AZ2. Select the subnet. There are two subnets, one is private and one is public. I'm spinning it in the public. Let me select this public subnet and IPv4. And regarding security group, I have already created security groups for this, and let me select SGW VPC endpoint. selected the VPC endpoint security group, and let me check everything is correct. Enable DNS. Yeah, so we are going to create this endpoint. Basically we are going to create this endpoint which is on the VPC. Let's click on create endpoint. So let's go back to our instance and check. The instance M5 large is running now, and VPC endpoint we just initiated and it's still in pending status. So we'll go basically what we are doing now. We This EC2 server is up and running. This is the M5 extra large machine, and the VPC endpoint we initiated it and it's in progress. We need to establish the connectivity between these three: storage gateway and VPC endpoint and the S3 server. So there is a step which we can do this. uh, when we after creating this VPC endpoint, we need to get a there are two ways to do it. One is we can give the public IP of the server machine, or we can just curl this machine and get the key and use that key to establish the connectivity. I will just show it in a minute. So we go to the gateway. This is where we stopped, and the EC2 instance is created, and now I have click on this. I have completed all the steps above on the EC2 instance and click on next. So here is the activation part. So there are two ways, as I mentioned earlier. One is through using the IP address. Your gateway IP address must be the public or accessible from within the current network from your web browser. Must be able to connect to this IP address. This is the IP address of the server machine which we are running. Basically, this IP address, public IP address of this one, or I should get a keys by pinging this machine. But to ping this machine, I will use this Windows machine. What I will do, I will log in and remote log into this Windows machine and curl it to this Linux server and get the keys, and using that keys I will establish the connectivity from the Linux server to the storage gateway. Okay, so let me show you how can I do that. Activation key, it is asking for activation key, but I need an activation key. So what I will do, let me go back to my EC2 instances. So all are running in the same subnet and in West 2A zone, and I'll go to the client Windows client machine and click on connect RDP client, download the remote desktop file, get password, upload keys, decrypt password, get the password, go back to the downloads, click on this Windows client machine which we downloaded, paste the password and continue. Currently we are logging into the Windows client machine to get the keys. Yeah, the machine started. So the machine is ready. Now I will use this curl command. If I go to my instructions. So here I'll curl the Windows Server machines. I need to change this IP. Let me go back to the instances. I'll go to the server file gateway server. I'll take the public IP address of this one. This is what I'm going to ping and plug this here IP, and then it asks for the VPC endpoint. We'll wait for VPC endpoint to get created and change this. So I will show one more time just to make sure everybody is understanding. So right now I logged into this Windows client machine, SMB client machine, and I got this public IP address of this machine. Using the curl command, I'll execute the curl command on this machine, and using this public IP, and also I'm going to pass the VPC ID of this VPC endpoint. So it should connect. This is VPC endpoint for the storage gateway. Once I ping it, curl it from here, and it should get a key, activation key, and using that I can establish the connectivity. So let me check the VPC endpoint here. It's available now. So let me go to this. So take the first one where it is not having any zone. If you look at this US West 2, rest all will be having 2A zones associated with this. Take the DNS name without the zone, that is US West 2. Copy this, and let's go to my instruction sheet. Replace this VPC endpoint from here, VPC, and paste this here. So now our curl command is ready, and we'll go back to Windows machine and go to command line, and curl it. I got the key here. That means storage gateway is responding, and I got the key. I will take this key and go back to my console. In the storage gateway we left off with the activation key, and let me plug this activation key and click on connect. So when I hit the connect button, and it will just review all these things, but there is no option to there is an option to change here. So it looks everything is correct, and activate the gateway. Successfully activated the gateway S3 mount FGW, and during the steps it will configure the storage. It may take couple of minutes. Okay, in our case it's really fast. So dev SDB 150 GB, the one the additional EBS volume which we created is showing as a cache. In our diagram, architecture diagram, this is the one when we are trying to establish this S3, and this is showing it as a cache volume here, the 150 GB volume, and we'll keep it as is. And basically this cache will be used while transferring or exchanging the data between the two different protocols, from S3 to SMB or NFS, or NFS SMB to S3. And CloudWatch alarm, I'll keep all other options same, and click on configure. insufficient data running. That should be fine. That's a normal status. So our file gateway is established successfully. So far what we achieved, we'll go back and see our architecture diagram one more time. So these two servers, Linux and Windows server, are prerequisite already spinning. We started with storage gateway. In the storage gateway steps, it asks for EC2 server to start a new EC2 server where the storage gateway services can be hosted, and it comes within AMI, and we started that server, and by default it look for 150 GB of cache memory, additional EBS. We established that, and then we started one VPC endpoint connect for storage gateway successfully. So we logged into the Windows server and did the curl command to this Linux server, and using this VPC endpoint for storage gateway, and got the keys from this storage gateway, and complete the setup of the storage gateway. So now the next step, we are going to deploy the S3 gateway. We are doing it now, and as part of next steps, we are going to create the SMB file shares and NFS file shares, and try to mount it on Windows machine and Linux machine. Let's go back to our console. It's running. I'll go ahead and click on the create file share. Before going to the file share, I will show the S3 bucket. The two specific S3 buckets I have created for this exercise. One is, it's in the S3 mount on EC2 Windows. Okay, let me S3 dash. S3 mount on Windows, EC2 Windows, and S3 mount on EC2 Linux. Both of them having in the S3 mount on Windows, I have already created two files. As soon as we mount this on Windows machine, we should be able to see these files as the file share server. In the Linux, I have created one. I think, yeah, here also I have created two files. As soon as we mount this on the Linux machine, we should be able to see these files. Okay, these are the two different buckets, and we are going to create two different file shares on the same file gateway. Okay, so click on create file gateway. In the drop down, it will show the file gateway which we just now created, and there are two options. One is file share, yes, NFS. This is for standard Linux environment, and the other one is for SMB. This is for standard Windows environment. So first we'll start with the SMB server message block, and this is for Windows machine, and we'll click on this S3 bucket. So just now we saw the S3 mount on EC2 Windows. I'll select this one, and I'm not going to go with the Active Directory, and it will be guest access, and click on configure and provide password. Click on save, come down and click on create file share. Your file share has been created and added to the gateway. Okay, so it's successfully created. Let's go back and click on the file shares. It's still updating. Okay, so let's in order to mount this, let's click on this. At the bottom of this file share, it will show the command to mount this. Let's copy the command. Basically it's nothing but net use and Windows drive letter and 172.31.32. This is the IP and the actual S3 bucket name. I have copied this and I'll go back to my Windows machine. Right now, let me explain with respect to architecture. I have created a file share, SMB file share here using this file gateway service. And it's already linked with S3 mounted on Windows. And this file share, I'm going to mount it on this Windows machines. We already logged into this machine to get the keys earlier. I'm going to use the same session and mount it on the Y drive because Z drive I have already used and mounted once. I'm not going to use it. I'm going to mount it on Z drive. Let's go back to my Windows machine, which is already we have used. So I'll create the command here. It's already there, but the IP will be different. Yeah, IP will be different. I will use this Y drive, net use Y drive and IP address and mount on Windows. Copy. Earlier I have mounted it on the Z drive and now I'm going to mount it on Y drive. It's no issues, but same S3 will be mounted on two different drives. That should not be a problem, but I will focus on Y drive. Click on this. It will ask for the username for this. Remember SMB GUEST. SMB guest is the general username, and the password, whatever password you have given. So command executed successfully. So let's go back here. Click on this. If you look at this Y drive, it's mounted. We don't need this. Let me delete this. Can disconnect. Okay. So the Y drive, the one which we mounted, it's showing the test2 and test file. These are nothing but the files which were already there on the S3 bucket. If I go back to my S3 bucket, and this is for Linux, if I go back to the Windows bucket, the test2 and test file were the files which were already there, and the same files I could see in the Windows machine as the drive. So for testing, I'll create one folder, and inside that folder I'll create a file, new folder for demo, and click on this and create a file. I'll create a new text file, test file created demo created for demo .txt. I'll enter some text here. Test file created for the Windows SMB share mount. Control S. I just saved it. Oops. Save it. Okay, so I just save this here, and let me go back to my S3 bucket. Where is the refresh button? Yeah, here is the refresh button. Yeah, the new folder for demo is created. If I click on this, the file is created, and the test file created for demo txt. And when I click on this and open it, I could see the text message as a block storage. This is the beauty of mounting the block storage on SMB. So successfully we have mounted the SMB file share on the Windows client machines. We will do the similar exercise with another S3 bucket, and we'll mount it on the Linux machine. So let me go back to the architecture and show it. So far the Windows machines we have mounted on the Linux file share and access through SMB, and this path is completely working as expected. Now we are going to mount a Linux bucket, S3 bucket, on the same storage gateway server as a Linux file share, and mount it on the Linux machine and try to SSH and access it. Let's go back to our demo session. So go back to the instances. Before that we had to create the file share. Let's go to the file shares, create file share, and select the file gateway, and this time we are going to select NFS. This is standard for Linux environment, and choose the S3 bucket. So this time we are going to go with the S3 EC2 mount Linux. Technically there is no difference between the S3 buckets. It's just a different bucket, that's it. Both are technically same or similar, I would say. And click on this create file share. Your file share has been created and added to the gateway successfully, so it's good to use. If we come down here, it gives the three options. It can be mounted on Linux, it can be mounted on Microsoft Windows, and it can be mounted on Mac OS. So today's sessions we are going to mount this on a Linux machine. So let me copy this Linux path. Okay, and I will go back to my notes. So here I will keep it as a separate path, separate one. Sudo mount -t NFS ONS no log hard and the IP address, and the next thing is the S3 bucket and a mount path. The mount path we are going to create, this is a folder path we'll create, and on that folder path we are going to mount this the share, NFS share. Let's go back to our console instances. This time I'm going to try with the Linux machine. Click on this Linux machine and connect instance connect. Per time being I'm going to use the instance connect. Click on this instance connect. So if I see ls-la, the mount is already there. I'm going to create it as a mount 1, because in earlier session I have created mount. I create mount 1, make directory mnt1, present working directory user ect user ls-la. So mount 1 is available now. If I look at the mount 1, ls-la, nothing is available. ect user total 0, and there is no data available. So let me get back here, and here I'm going to mount it on mount 1, and I'll execute this command with a sudo permission. Control C. So sudo mount, right now I'm mounting the file share which we created for the Linux machine on the mount 1. And if we look at this bucket, the Linux bucket, it already had two files, the new test file and test exit test txt. Once I mount, I should be able to see this these two files here. Let me hit enter. Okay, looks like it's executed successfully. lst -la. Yeah, now it shows the mount 1 in the green color. Change directory to mnt1. ls-la should show the two files. Perfect. So the new test.txt and test.txt, so this is nothing but the two files which were on the S3 mount Linux, is showing it is coming as a NFS file ref files on the Linux machine. And let me create one more file, sudo oh yeah, I'm in the inside this sudo vim demo test file.txt and add some text and demo file created during Linux file share mounting. Okay, write and quit. Okay, so we'll double check it. ls-la. Okay, that demo file is created and it has some bytes. Okay, so let's go back to my S3 bucket and refresh it now. Yeah, it created the demo file text. Let me click on this. Yeah, demo file created during the Linux file share mounting. It's mounted. There is one catch here. In both so far we have checked loading the whenever we create a file on this Windows machine or in the S3, in the Linux machine, it will immediately reflect in the S3. But other way around, whenever we create a file on S3, it will not immediately reflect on the machine. That is because there is a cache associated with this. Like if we go back to this diagram, whenever I load some file on this S3 and try to see it on the Windows machine, on the Linux machines, it will not be immediately available. That will be cached because these machines will be connected and this cache will be used, and this cache will not be refreshed immediately whenever the file loaded on the S3. To do that, there is a cache refresh option. I will show you that in a minute. Let's go back to Windows machine, and so here in the Windows machine we have one folder and two files, and I'll go ahead and create another file on this Windows machine, Windows S3. I'll create a sample file and push it. Give me 1 second. I'll create test file created and mounted on Windows S3 bucket, Okay, I'll just save it. I will keep it on desktop. Let me keep it on desktop, and I'll name this file as Windows S3 file. Okay, and save it on the desktop. Cut this, I don't need, and okay. So now what I should do, go back to my S3, go back to my S3 and upload the file, add files from desktop. This is the file which we have created, and open it and click on this and upload. So the file in the S3 bucket uploaded successfully. I could see Windows S3 file, and if I open this I should be able to see the text. Yeah, the text. However, when I go back to my Windows machine and do refresh or whatever, I will not be able to see this file here. So because the cache is not refreshed, what I'm saying is I loaded a file on the Windows we created just now, and when I see this through this Windows Server SMB file share, I'm not able to see the file. That is because it's the SMB server is keep accessing through this cache, and the cache is not get refreshed with the the new files which we loaded. So we need to we need to log into this storage gateway. There is an option to refresh the cache, and once we refresh the cache it should be available on the SMB server. There are two options. One is we can do it in the console, and other one is we can run an AWS CLI command. So today we are going to do the cache refresh from the console. Let me go back to the console, go back to the file share details, and file shares. Now we are working with the Windows file share. Click on action and refresh cache. So click on refresh cache and click on start. Successfully started the cache refresh, and it will be immediate. Let me check it here. Perfect. Now I'm able to see the files which we loaded. Test files created and mounted on the Windows S3 bucket. This is, I don't know, this is a challenge which we need to overcome whenever we are designing some solutions. We should have a step to refresh the cache frequently or as and when needed. This is the overall flow end to end, whatever we plan. Let me show the storage groups. If we go back to storage groups, EC2 instance, we use the two storage groups. This is Windows client. In the Windows client storage group, sorry, security groups, we are opening the port range 443, 249, 445, 80, 3389 and 22, because I have used the same security group for both the Windows machine and Linux machine. If I go back to the another SMB, yeah, the security group, 443, 449, 445, 80, 339 and 22, and let me go to gateway, storage gateway, and in the file, not this one, the VPC VPC endpoint security group. Sorry about that. Let me go to VPC. VPC endpoints, and I do have one endpoint and security group. Click on security group. This is the default security group. So I opened this traffic for everywhere, but technically we don't need to. We can mention the specific port to be open. These are the security groups we have used, and that's all about today's demo. And let me know if you need anything specific and any specific questions. I can respond back. And we have completed this architecture end to end, and hope this helps everyone. Please subscribe my channel and share this with your friends, and we'll connect in the next session. I'm going to do a FSX mount, FSX NetApp and tap file storage creation, and I'll mount it on Windows in the next upcoming video. Please stay tuned. Thank you all.